This is the Prestigious Initiative. Welcome. I'm Chris Bean, and here with me is Chris Kent. Hello, Mr. Kent.
Hello, sir.
Today we have two guests joining us. We have Ms. Lily Brooks.
Hello.
Good morning. Good evening. How are you? Hello.
All of that at once. I'm great.
One of those is fitting, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Keira Ramirez. How are you?
Good.
I'll say how are you. That's sufficient.
Oh, I get less.
Good morning. Good evening. Afternoon. Salud.
I should get one more now, though. You got to balance it out.
Buenas noches. I don't know.
So today we're going to talk about time management. And by the way, this is taking a break from our discussion on the art of effective communication. And like I said, time management is such an important skill, and I think that it deserves some time to talk about. So time management. Time management can be about how we can be more productive, how we can reduce stress. And, I think those are some of the good places to start with. So I guess, what does time management mean to you?
The biggest aspect of time management for me is really just prioritizing. A lot of times, especially in job and work and family, balancing that, you really have to prioritize what to spend your time on. And that can change throughout life, and especially with different activities. So, if you are someone who's very job oriented, but suddenly you have a child or you're doing more family stuff, you can prioritize more of that time versus a career.
And do you have a set priorities or a way to establish those priorities, or they just kind of happen as they happen?
Most recently, school, I had a very tedious set of tasks, and I also was trying to balance learning an instrument. So I had to really balance what I was struggling with most in school versus what I wanted to achieve with my instrument, as well as just personal time. So I think it's kind of a day-to-day basis. You really have to manage where you're at in your responsibilities, your service to others, but also your service to yourself, and making sure that you are in a mental, emotional, and spiritual state to be able to complete all those tasks.
Okay. And Keira, how about you? What is time management for you?
I think that for the majority of my life, I really sucked at managing time because that didn't matter apparently. I don't know. But now that I've loaded a lot of stuff onto myself, and I have a lot of responsibilities now, and I have goals that I want to achieve, I think just making the most of your time, making the most of the time that you have, making sure that every activity that you put yourself into, you do 100%, or you learn from all that you do.
And so really, it sounds like the more you add to your list, the more you add to yourself that you have to do or want to do, that means you have to prioritize your time better or differently, because then you can get to those things. Whereas before, because you didn't have a lot of things on your list, so to say, to do, your time management wasn't as good as it was or as it is now, because you have more things to do. So even though you have more things, you're able to manage your time better now than you were before.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
But I guess what I took away from that was more of making sure you're doing something productive, or, something that's going to benefit you with your time. Would you agree with that as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, just from what you said, what I'm hearing too is, like I said, it's quote unquote, you don't want to waste your time. You want to make sure that the time you are doing things is productive and useful to you. Yeah.
That's it.
And Mr. Kent, what about you? What is time management for you?
Yeah, it's kind of a mix of both. I like what you both said, and they kind of go hand in hand for me, and things that I need to do and things that are good for me, I want to prioritize them to get them done first before I do things that are, maybe more fun or things that are for more enjoyment rather than things I need to do. And so, prioritizing things and making sure that my time is productive and beneficial to me personally. But I know we've talked about before as well, everyone always says that they ran out of time or they don't have enough time to do something. Well, that's just not true. You just didn't use the time you had to do the things you needed to do. And so, like I said, a mixture of both, prioritizing what's going to be really beneficial for me.
I suppose for me, time management is making your schedule, your calendar, and then sticking to those things that you say, that you commit to yourself that you're going to do. And of course, we've talked about life values, before and trying to make time for each of those values, or if you have goals, try to set time for each of those in your daily practices. And so it's kind of a collection of different things, but really I think the calendar is the source of time management, at least for myself.
Yeah, and of course we're talking about it, I think, in a really broad sense, but time management can be broken down into many different parts. Time management in your job, time management with school, time management at your house, time management with your friends or family or whatever thing. So, it's so nuanced, and we could really kind of take a closer look at all of this. But just in general, I think that's kind of what we're talking about now, is just doing those things as a whole, but then we can approach different areas of life in different ways as far as how we manage our time.
So I guess, on that note, if you have, I guess that's where the priorities falls in, where you have different priorities, and your priorities may change, not just dependent on the time of year, time of month, but also the location that you're at, whether you're at home or school or work or whatever. Your priorities would shift because of the influences or the pressures that you have that are dependent on where you are, or your values at home versus your values at work or wherever you are. And so you're right. It's not just, time management. Okay, done. But it's time management while you're at work or at home or at school or whatever. And all of that is dependent on the priorities that you place on yourself, or that are placed on you by your work or your school or whoever. So that's an interesting point. To have, that's not just one. Time management isn't just one thing, but rather it's lots of small things in different areas. So, I guess what would be some effective time management things that you have, if you have like a small tip that you use, let's say time management for school. What's the time management tip for school?
I heard I believe it was a TED Talk, and I could be misquoting this, but he said that many people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And I think what that set up for me was just to be really realistic with how I'm spending my time. I can't go out and do something for more than the hours that are in a day. And on top of that, there are certain things that I would love to do with my time, but then I also have to uphold my responsibilities and obligations. So I think for me, it was being really realistic with where I need to spend my time. So maybe I didn't want to study for a specific class, but I knew that I needed to. And then also making sure that, like I said prior, that I was in a good mental, emotional, and physical state, because I found trying to work so hard and use up all of my time was actually being counterproductive. So to make sure that you are always operating at like a 100%, and fulfilling all your obligations first and your duties and responsibilities, then doing what you want to do, was really important for me to fit everything in.
Yeah, and I guess, I haven't heard that you said you can do more in a year than you think you can.
So most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10.
Okay, I haven't heard that, but I've heard, I forget what the actual principle is called, but basically humans are really bad at, let's say I have a task to build this chair that I have to put together. I think it's going to take 10 minutes, and in reality, it takes 30 minutes because there's so many variables that I don't account for, and that's a random, instance of that. But when you're trying to think through a task, you standardly miss things, and so you think it's going to take substantially less time than it actually takes. And then I guess the flip side of that is work fills the time that it's allocated. That it's been allocated for. So if I have this chair, but if I have an hour to build it, it's going to take an hour. But if I had 5 minutes to build it, I could build it. Okay, maybe I couldn't do it in 5 minutes, but maybe I could get most of it done, almost all the way. Maybe it would take 10 minutes to get it done, but not an hour. But if I had an hour to fill that time, it would take that time. So work expands to fill the time that is allocated for, which is interesting. Yeah. All right, Keira, what about you?
I would say, me personally, I really like using lists to get through everything, especially because I'm really forgetful about all the stuff I have to do, and I'm also a little paranoid of not getting everything done. So lists really help me to get through all the stuff I have to do in a day, but I would say they can be a little dangerous at sometimes, because you don't want to like play Russian roulette with that, where you're so like fixated on crossing something off that you like sacrifice the quality of what it is that you're doing. And I also think that like going into that, the ability like to make sacrifices, that I didn't get to this thing this time, but when I focused on this for this amount of time, it was a lot better than if I cut it off.
I fully understand that. And when I got married, my wife had to go on a trip somewhere. I said, give me a list of things that I want, that you need me to get done. Like a honey-do list? Yeah, exactly that. And she felt really silly about doing that, but I needed that list. So I knew specifically what I don't want to fill in the blank and just make something up and just, look at all these things I did and they were the wrong things. And so I wanted the list so that I knew specifically what to do. And I guess, have you ever done something that probably should have been on your list that wasn't on your list and then wrote it on your list just to cross it off?
Yeah.
Doesn't that feel good?
Most of the time, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Kemp, how about you? What do you think?
I think that I was trying to think about how to express what I'm feeling because I don't want to repeat both of you. I think it's a lot of the same kind of things, but I personally need to have a plan, which kind of falls in line with being a list of like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and then I'll do this, and I'll do this, and do this. And that comes in with prioritizing what I need to do, and then having a list of what I need to do and being able to cross that off. But, sometimes, you get home, when you look all around you and everywhere you look, there's something you have to do, or there's things that you can't even see, you have to do that are kind of weighing down on you. But as soon as I can make a list and say, okay, I'm going to do this, and then this, and this, and this, and this, being able to get those things done. But I think the problem in that is that I tend to not manage my time then, because now I'm not worried about time, I'm worried about the list. And so like we're talking about as well, I thought it would take me 15 minutes to do this. It takes me an hour. Well, I don't really care because I'm doing that thing. And by the time I'm done, I realize, oh my gosh, an hour has passed and I poorly managed my time. And so having that list is important to me, I feel like, but I'm not necessarily the best at managing the time, making sure everything gets done. And so I guess in this conversation, that doesn't really fit, but I think that's how I approach things. And so maybe I need to do some work on some time management and how to effectively disperse my time between those things.
So, and I think it's Jordan Peterson that says it. He says that to give yourself 10 minutes and play a game and see how much you can get done inside of that 10 minutes, which is the opposite kind of effect of, I have 10 minutes to do this and I think it's going to take an hour. It's the opposite of that. But give yourself 10 minutes and, okay, what can you actually get done in 10 minutes? And it's often surprisingly more than you think you should have been able to get done in 10 minutes because it's a game, which is really interesting and a complete opposite of how that normally works for people. Yeah.
But what happens when I start a project? 10 minutes are done and I'm nowhere close to finishing the project. Do I just leave it there? Do I come back to it later? Do I spend more time with it?
It depends on what else you have to get done and how pressing are those other things compared to what you have now.
I think the anxiety of knowing I had an unfinished project would kill me.
I mean, you have a house. How many unfinished projects do you have in your house?
Right now?
Yeah.
Oh, countless.
Okay.
Now they're all piling into my brain.
Yeah, the list almost never goes away. You think you're like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, I got these things done. And you're like, okay, I can breathe now. But then something breaks. Or then you realize you're like, your vision will narrow to find the things. It's never done. There's always something to get done. And so to have, a unfinished project, okay, inevitably life is full of unfinished projects. They never go away. Does it feel good to be able to check those boxes and have those? Yeah, absolutely. Is it terrible to leave and open it into one where you're like, oh man, 10 more minutes, I would have had this one done. Yeah, but it depends on what other pressing things are more urgent or how urgent those other things are. Can you spend the extra 10 minutes? I don't know. It depends. So, yeah, but yeah, anyways.
No, it's interesting too, because I think often as well, I personally will have that list in my head and think, oh, I have to do all this many things, and then I might overestimate how long it will take, when really, like you just said, if I spend 10 minutes doing it, I might be surprised by how much actually got done. And so sometimes I think that the anxiety of that as well is like, well, this is going to take 50 hours when really it might take 30 minutes.
And
but I won't even start it because I'm worried about it taking too long. But really what I need to do is just, allot or schedule 10 minutes to try it out and then kind of go from there,
And that's where most people are, is they have this big daunting, or they think this big daunting task, and they don't even try. I don't have time to do this because it's going to take, and you don't put any effort forth because it's going to take too long, and you don't even know because you don't try. Yeah, fair. So I guess on that note, what would you say are some common challenges for time management? Lily, what do you think?
One thing that I believe my grandmother said to me when I was younger was that I needed to, quote, carve out time for myself. And kind of along with what you were saying, I might try to challenge myself to do something in 10 minutes, but I'll realistically give myself 30. So let's say maybe it's a little bit over 10 minutes and I do 15 minutes of work. I still have that like fallback time. I think also being practical with it, if I know that something is most likely going to be 30 minutes, then I'll carve out 45 minutes. And two, that gives me a little bit of time to know that I don't have to anxiously do all my work and speed through it, but I can still challenge myself with how fast can I get this done. And so I think a challenge for people is purely the mindset. And I think we were talking about this too the other day, that when you have like this giant task, breaking it down into little pieces could help you. So maybe you do have an hour worth of work. Give yourself 5 minutes to work on it. And over time, that will become less. Or maybe it won't, but you'll still be 5 minutes ahead of it.
Well, I think that kind of sums up so far what we talked about is you have your list and you think about all the different things you have to do for it, and you break them down into small little individual things. And then you could go a step further and say, okay, this one's going to take 2 minutes. This is going to take 5 minutes. This is going to take 15 minutes. And then then you allocate all of that time. And then, like you said, okay, I think this is going to take 25 minutes. And then let's say 25 minutes is a little short. So let's bump in an extra 15 minutes to it. And then you have this whole time, and they're all done step by step, and you can check them off as you go. And you have time, allocations for each of them. And they're all the small little details. And the benefit to that is, as you're thinking about it, you're like, oh yeah, I forgot I got to do this. And oh, there's this part too. And those are things that you would have never inevitably came into contact with, or been stumbling blocks along the way that would have added time into it. But because you're thinking about it and making that detailed list, it's not that you're going through and doing the work, but you get to think about the work in that small little minute ways, which again is like the connection of all the things we've talked about so far. Yeah. Keira, what do you think? What are some misconceptions or some pitfalls to time management?
I think just like the use of free time, because I am naturally a pretty lazy person. I think everyone has their moments, but I've heard of many people say that like the best way to get something done is do it for like a small increment of time, and then give yourself like a break, like free time to play a game or do whatever, and then get back on it. I tried that, and like the first day I did it, I spent too much time on like my free time. So I was like, that can wait. I can sacrifice that. It's fine. It was not fine.
Because you already done some of it. So you started, take a little break, come back to it later.
Yeah, but that break, like, it took way too long, and then I forgot about what I was doing, and I moved on to something else. And it was an assignment that was due at 11 at night, and I was up at 10 trying to finish it. Not my best work, but
You don't work super good under pressure.
I can.
Well, it
I don't
sounds
know
like
about
more
good.
in that case the pressure wasn't pressure enough. You didn't hold yourself to a high enough, I don't want to say standard, but does that make sense? Like it's not that there wasn't pressure. You had pressure of getting the job done. However, you weren't as worried about what happens if you didn't get it done, or you didn't feel as pressured to get it done. Would that be wrong? Would that be?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I like that teacher very much.
Sure.
I didn't care to get it done.
See, which is not adding to the pressure, taking away from the pressure.
Right.
You say, I don't care about this. Doesn't matter. So I guess, again, to tie it back into something we've already talked about before, that wasn't high on your priority list. You knew it needed to be, but you didn't put it high on your priority list. Doing something else was higher,
Yeah.
which I don't blame you for. I'm definitely guilty of the same thing more often than not. But trying to identify the challenge there is that it's probably why that happened. which is also why my sink is full of dishes, because I didn't prioritize getting those done.
So Mr. Kent, what are some poor time management things that you have come across?
I think that sometimes I think one or two things is good enough. So say, for example, my list has 8 things on it, and then I get 1 or 2 of them done. I think to myself, okay, I did 2 things. I'm good to go. Good enough. That's all I needed to do. When in reality, I probably should be doing the other 6 things that are on there. And so maybe I reward myself too early, or I don't hold myself to that list that I made per se. I just, like I said, it's good enough. I did 2 of the 8 projects in my house, so good to go.
And you're okay in those instances with those unfinished projects?
Sure, for the time that I'm relaxing or taking a break.
Because you're soaking in the win of finishing whatever.
Right, yeah. And then I lay down and go to bed and I think, oh man, I really should have done those 6 other things, huh? So I think the short-term gratification or the short-term relief wins over, when often I should be more focused on the long term and actually the bigger picture.
I see. I think my time management pitfall is taking on too many things. And then I spread myself too thin, and I say yes. I've done better with this now, but I used to say yes all the time to people, and I would sacrifice projects that I was doing. I would stop in the middle to go help somebody do whatever, and then I would get back to mine, and then I'd get pulled into another direction all the time, helping other people, and then very rarely getting to do the things that I wanted or needed to get done. And since then, I have realized that was an issue. So I say no much more often now. And sometimes I'll even say no and then kind of go back and reevaluate my list of priorities or my ongoing projects at the time. And actually, you know what? I think I can help you out with this. Doesn't happen all that often that I do that, but has happened. So my default is no, I can't help you. I'm sorry. And then I get an opportunity to kind of second guess it and actually think about it. And every once in a while I'll go back and actually, you know what? Yeah, I can sacrifice a little bit of time to help you. But that's I don't know if it's like a people pleasing or I want to be helped. I don't know. But anyways, that's my downfall is I will sacrifice my own work to help somebody else with their work. But I've gotten better. I say no all the time now.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I guess I had a question for you as well. How do you kind of approach that situation? How do you approach delegating your task or saying no to avoid kind of overcommitting yourself? But you answered, and that's just your default. You just say no to everything, and then you backtrack on it and say, oh, okay, maybe I can't do this,
Yeah, right.
And I know you and I have talked, this only sort of relates to it, but sometimes in those instances, you said you don't know why you do that. I personally would think that, if someone's asking for help, saying no would be admitting that I am not capable of doing it, or that I am, I'm not able to get those things done. And so I think it would be a detriment to my self-image of saying like, oh, I had to say no because I'm not good enough to do this thing or that thing, which isn't the case. You're overcommitting yourself and you're not managing your time well is what's happening. But I think personally, that would be the one reason I would say no, or I would say yes when I should be saying no, is because I would think it would mean that I'm not as good as I think or I want to be. If that makes sense.
Like a social pressure, both from yourself and that other person that you're talking with.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we've all been in situations too where we've wanted something from someone or needed something from them, and they said no. And even though you should know better, in your head you're like, oh man, dang it, I hate you. But really, it's not their fault. Maybe they're taking care of themselves or whatnot. So maybe it is some of that social pressure of wanting to avoid that from the other person or from yourself too.
Sure. Yeah. So we talked a little bit about, having priorities and setting goals. What would your kind of process be to establish those priorities? And we talked about, those priorities can be different depending on where you are and the time of year or whatever, all the different variables. But what would you say would be some surefire ways to kind of set those up, at least initially?
I would say a really important aspect of that is taking accountability for your time and respecting your time. if you think that your time is just something that you can, well, first, something that you will always have, you're fairly foolish. And if you think that it's something that you can just wave around and kind of like you said before, give to anybody, you're going to end up in a lot of trouble. So I think respecting it, establishing that rule of respect with yourself and your own time will allow you to better prepare for things in your life and be self-oriented and, you know, be able to take care of your obligations. But I think what I do specifically is I think week to week basis. So I used to have a very strict list. I had to get everything done in a certain amount of time. And I found I kind of became a slave to my list. So then I figured if I see improvement while spending any amount of time in different aspects in a week, then this is a system that's working. And in a month, if I continue to improve, then so on and so forth. So I think setting up a list is important to make sure that your obligations are met, but also allowing yourself space and time to see your improvement and not give up immediately when I don't have time for all this or whatever other self-images might come in. As well as when I do accomplish certain tasks, I always think, what if I can do one more? What if one more is like all I need to make it or something? And I give myself a lot of weird pep talks, but whatever works, I guess.
And so you will essentially have like a goal of the week, and you will set out as a like a one goal every week. Does it change? Does it after you accomplish that? Is that a goal that you can achieve in the week?
It's very day-to-day basis. So currently, I play the cello and I have a recital coming up, and I could not get this one passage of my music. Just could not get it. And actually today was the first day I was able to play through it 5 times. So for me, that was, okay, if by next week I can get to play through it, no mistakes whatsoever, without having to work up to getting those 5 times, then that's some improvement. I don't sit down every day and be like, okay, I have to do this for an hour. If I get it in maybe 20 minutes, I was able to do it 5 times without any mistakes. I'll be like, hey, you can rest a little bit today. And then I spent more time studying my French. So it's not necessarily one goal per week, but more as all my different aspects of life need to show some sort of growth. And let's say I grow tremendously with my cello, but something else in my life, or maybe I'm not spending as much time with my family, then the next week I will prioritize that. Be like, I need to spend time with my family. Cello can take a back seat.
I'm seeing. Okay. Keira, what do you think?
I feel like it's like completely plainly based on how I feel in that moment, which I don't think is very smart or healthy, but it's worked thus far.
Okay. So you can switch the priority from moment to moment or day to day, and just kind of where you see fit, you plug into this or do this or whatever it is based on how you're feeling at that time.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like her system, but instead of like weekly, it's like hourly.
Okay. And have you seen benefit from changing it hourly?
Kind of.
Okay.
A little bit. I have nothing else to compare it to, so I'd say yeah. But if I change it up and I realize that like something else, maybe if I like start doing weekly and that's better than.
But so you go by hourly, and that's all by feel, which is, I mean, I'm not saying that that's a wrong thing. I think changing it by feel, that means you have to be in tune with your feelings and kind of what's going on around you as you're being able to shift your focus or the priorities as you go. Right? I mean, am I thinking too much on that?
No, I'd say that's pretty fair.
Okay. Mr. Ken, how about you?
Not to bring it too off the rails, but I think a lot of it comes down to, as we said so many times on this podcast, specifically about the values in your life and kind of what makes you happy. And so I think I tend to make my schedule or shift my goals based on how I feel and what I think will make me happier. So for example, if I don't get anything done, I sit around and play video games all day, and then I find myself being very sad and unfulfilled by my life. Okay, maybe I need to reset my value and what's actually important to me, and take a look at my goals to try to get myself out of that position. So instead of wasting all my time and doing nothing, I set some goals and some things and make my schedule to help me take steps toward being happier. And so within that, I'm having a prioritized list. I'm also basing it off of my feelings of, I'm going to do this so that I can feel better. And not because I'm going to do this because I have to do this. I'm going to do this because if I do this, I'll be a mega millionaire or whatever. I'm basing my schedule and planning my time out and things that I know will bring me into a better mood or state of being, if that can make sense. And so that can look different at any point in time for an undetermined amount of time. But I think personally, I try to stay in touch with the feelings, try to stay in touch with my feelings, and then do things that I know will help to either change that feeling or maintain it, or completely turn it around, again, depending on what I find when I look inward.
Okay. So you guys both said by feelings. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think
you're just a machine. You're just a robot.
I think for myself, I set my list of priorities based off of my value system, and I let that value system kind of be my guide. And every once in a while, I will have to adjust and change it. But I mean, essentially, most days I do the same thing. I have basically a set schedule. I mean, humans are already very much habit-forming creatures. And so we do the same thing every single day at this time, all the time, just because that's how we are. But I think that for myself, that's where my priorities are, because my schedule is based off of my values, and my values are based off of me, that process that I went through for myself. And so, we talked about these before, and so that kind of informs where I'm at on those things. I know we talked with Jocelyn about adding the why to those specific calendar events, and I have not done that yet. And I think for myself, instead of just adding the why, I might add like a different calendar. Like in Google Calendar, you can have however many different calendars, and they can be color coded. And so I think I would put my list of core values on there, and then color coordinate those. And then each of my calendar events would be color coordinated based off of my values, which would be the why that was kind of built into those. I've been trying to work out how that system would actually work since our talk with Jocelyn. But yeah, anyway, so my that's how that system works for me, is I set my priorities based off of my values. Yeah. How do you balance the demands of personal life, work, other commitments to manage your time effectively?
I think also kind of going into like how you feel. Whatever I think like seems best, or whatever I prioritize in that moment, is how I would balance all of that.
Okay. Yeah, fair.
I think I very much also use value systems, as well as evaluating my performance in the week, I guess would be how I word it, is how I can understand how I can function more efficiently and better in the future. So if I find maybe I wasted a little bit too much time in one week, I will try to create a system of efficiency for the next week and then continue on that way. And like I said before, if one thing is growing a little bit too much and the other thing is suffering for it, and I'm not willing to make that sacrifice, then I will prioritize that as well.
So then you test, you iterate, and then test, and so on.
Yes.
I see. Yes.
I feel like there's two distinct sides of the room right now. I got you two are systematic, and then us two are not as much systematic.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. What time management strategies have you found to be the most helpful in increasing your productivity? Lists. Yeah. And then making that list, and then like we talked about, making that as detailed as you possibly can to kind of think out the things that inevitably will happen as you're doing whatever the project is. and we've talked about way back when, but projects are lists. A project includes many tasks that are connected together to achieve whatever the goal is. Just to kind of define what a project is.
Your own
Yeah.
definition of a project.
Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
Lily, what do you think?
I think, again, I would just say my value system. Always can fall back on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you mentioned one earlier where you talked about, spending a little bit of time on something and then seeing what you can get done in that. I think that's a effective.
Well, I used to
strategy.
be a really, really bad procrastinator, and I had a professor tell me that I should stop punishing myself for it and use it as like a superpower. And that's kind of where timing myself came in, like how fast can I do this and under pressure. And eventually it just evolved to me putting unexistent pressure on myself, which then evolved into me giving myself like pep talks. I'll just like write an essay and see like I can get this done in 5 minutes.
See,
It's I have
would just
2 weeks to do it, but
I would just like play the Mario music or like the Doomslayer songs, and I would get that done in an hour.
Okay.
I still feel the divide in the room right now.
Okay. Well, this will be a good one. Okay, ready? How do you deal with unexpected interruptions or changes or challenges, rather, to your schedule or to your productivity time?
Pretend it doesn't happen until it's too late, and then like do whatever I can to get it done.
So I'm going to give you a scenario. You're working on a paper, and then you realize that you overlooked an email that said that instead of the paper being due, let's see, while you're working on a paper, you realize you overlooked an email that says you have a assignment that is due for another class in an hour, because that's unexpected and it's different than what you're doing right now.
I would no, I don't.
No, I don't.
You don't dictate my time. Yeah. I would probably just like in my head real quick be like, how fast can I get this done? If I can't, can I just plead to the teacher or whoever sent that email my circumstance?
no,
I didn't see it. My computer was just broken. My email system doesn't work. I'm so sorry.
Okay, fair enough. Unexpected interruptions to your time management system.
Like I said before, I carve out time. So I do give myself some time to allow things to happen. Especially in our household, I think we have a very dynamic set of human beings, and a lot of random things happen. Not necessarily bad, but definitely unexpected. And I think growing up with the people I have grown up with, very chaotic fellows, I guess, be a good way to explain it. I just kind of grew up conditioned to be able to stay on track while managing other people. Yeah.
That's pretty solid.
That was just a roundabout way of saying nothing surprises you.
No, I am definitely surprised and astonished.
But that reaction is just, oh, wow. And then you
I give myself 3 seconds and I'm like, okay.
Oh, man.
Or it sounds, I get picked up from that you delegate things to people.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Which actually I think is funny with like the whole divide, because I think between the two of us, I'm the more like feeling. I just suppress it.
Sure, yeah, just
Keep the lid on the bottom of it.
Like
I understand.
a robot.
Yeah.
like
I tell you what I do. I get really irrationally upset about whatever thing derailed my plans. And the whole time I'm doing whatever I'm supposed to be doing, I'm just humming and hawing and huffing and puffing.
And furious about.
I'm fully aware that it's irrational and silly of me to be so upset about it. However, it makes me feel better.
I remember I had like a talk with you once where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot what happened, but it was something completely out of the ordinary that I really hate. And I was like, I know I'm not acting correct right now, but I hate this so much. Therefore, I can't help you clean.
No, I think, and we did have that talk because I used to be very much so the same way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was either Jordan Peterson or my father, one of the two. But I had listened to them talk for a while, and then I just realized that it wasn't something that mattered. I had to evaluate whether, this is sound really bad, but whether like my feelings mattered in that area. Because number one, if it happened, it happened. Number two, I don't value my feelings more than growth in any aspect. So I really had to, which again, it sounds bad, and I do think you need to have a lot of personal control for that. But I am a very, very deeply feeling person. Cry more times than I'd like to admit. But I have to evaluate whether or not that is important.
Okay. All right. Have you ever experienced burnout due to poor time management? And if so, what do you do to recover?
Definitely have experienced burnout. I think I was in a little bit of denial. So I was just like, I'm too good for that. I was not. But I'm still kind of figuring out a way to like either get over that hurdle or just erase it entirely. But slowly but steadily, it's kind of moving along. I've used a bunch of different stuff to help me though.
I think personally too, I know where you're coming from. And at a certain point, it sounds silly to say, but it almost is like this. And just one day I wake up and I said, you know what? I'm over this. I'm tired of feeling this way. I'm so sick of this. And then I feel the motivation or the drive to change something about it. But, we did a whole episode on burnout. And as I said before, sometimes I just sit in that feeling for so long because I don't want to do anything about it. I don't know what to do, or it doesn't seem like it, there's anything I can do, until one day I just wake up and it's like, you know what, this is dumb. I want to be completely different. And then I completely change everything. I don't know if you feel the same way too, but, I very much am not like, I have to do something about this right now. I'm just kind of like, you know what, this is where I'm at right now. This is how I'll be for a little bit. And then one day it'll straighten itself out. And I don't think everyone feels that way, but I don't know if you could relate.
I like to like sit in a little puddle of sorrow for a few seconds and be like, it's all good.
There you go.
It's all right.
Yeah.
I have experienced burnout. I think in some aspects I still am. But one thing that always resonated with me was my father telling me to take your moment, but just a moment. And that kind of goes with what I said earlier, that trying to push myself so much and spread myself over so many things is counterproductive. So I think just evaluating what I needed when I needed it allowed me to kind of push through that burnout. I think for me specifically, I was trying to survive on like 6 hours of sleep, which most people are like, oh wow, I wish I could get 6 hours. But over time for me, it ended up being really counterproductive to all my tasks, as well as just making sure that, hey, maybe I am just really tired today emotionally. So communicating that with people around me. I think one day I told Kiki, I was like, I love you. Do not mess with me today. Like, do not, because we tease each other so many times. But evaluating yourself helps you get through burnout. And then to avoid it in the future is just making sure that you don't let yourself get to a point where you just cannot anymore. And communicating with others and allowing others to help you can also lighten that load in some aspects.
So then not relying, but you allow others to say, hey, to kind of prompt the question, are you getting burnt out? Or to give you that opportunity to reflect to see if you are, and then to do something about it, which of course the first, at least for me, is denial. No, I'm fine. Leave me alone. And then you can kind of second guess and then think, oh, actually, yeah, maybe that's probably right. Yeah.
Well, I did approach it initially with denial, but then it was like one day I just couldn't. Yeah, kind of like what you said. I'm just so tired of this, and nothing was helping me. My caffeine addiction was not good.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
We talked about saying no already, but I mean, really, saying no is stopping yourself from overcommitting. And for me, that was my thing. Is I was realizing that because I was saying yes to everybody, I was getting burnt out because I was getting all of their things done, which is great for them, but I wasn't getting anything done for myself. And so my default is no, I can't help you. I'm sorry. And then I have an opportunity to reevaluate that if that actually does happen. All right, last question. What are some time-wasting habits you've identified in your life, and how do you deal with those or manage those or address those?
Or if you haven't yet, how do you plan to?
Good.
Definitely like my free time and how much I want to just like relax, because I think we all kind of chase like that feeling of completing the whole list, completing all of your tasks, and you want that like that rewarding feeling, I guess.
It feels better to do something and then relax, and does it just relax? Because you have that, like you said, or when I was talking earlier, that high of like, man, I did this one thing. Now I can reward myself too.
It's a dopamine rush. You get to check that box. Yes, feels good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I would stay up really late just like scrolling on my phone because, one, I didn't want my free time to end, and two, I didn't want the next day to start because that just meant more like tasks and stuff. So I feel like you really have to like get yourself in a good headspace to deal with all of that.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think personally, or at least recently, I've been spending so much time on my phone. But I think a lot of that is I have more free time. So for me to try to get over that, I'm trying to give myself like useful hobbies, or just picking up old hobbies. But like you said before, the dopamine, I've been researching a lot. The like scrolling effect is constant gratification over and over again. So I think exercising some discipline and putting that down for a while. And I know it's like really cliche, but reading a book genuinely, getting off of the screen can help a lot with that.
I mean, for me, and he's chuckling over there. For me, 9 days out of 10, I don't have my phone with me. I leave my phone at my house because then I don't have that urge to stand in the grocery line and pick up my phone and scroll through my phone. And so I can, oddly enough, it's kind of funny to me. I look around and I see everybody else on their phone, which is it's a weird space to be in. Like I'm the one person who's awake and everybody else is zombies on there. I don't know. It's just a weird, I don't know, dynamic.
And then you sound like the grandma at the cashier, and you're like, man, everyone's got their nose in their phone these days. No one's paying attention.
Well, I was on my way home tonight, and I'm watching people drive, and they're not looking at the road. They're just on their phone, and they're going through the motions of driving or life in general, because they're living life, through their phone, or they're holding their phone and they're living life on their phone, and then life is happening around them. And so I just try to put I can be called because I have my watch can accept phone calls and text messages, so I'm not off the grid. I just don't have my phone. And on top of that, I also don't have any social media on my phone because I don't have any social media, Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. By the way, like and subscribe to us on on all of those platforms. We are on there. You can find us on there.
He won't see it, but I'll see it.
Yes, I will not see it, but Mr. Ken sure will. He is the social media manager for our podcast. I leave my phone at home. My phone is we've talked about this before. I would like to do a whole episode or maybe a whole series of episodes on setting up your electronic devices to be productive, or to have them help you to be more productive as opposed to less productive as they are for most people. But my phone is a tool that I use in certain instances, like if I need a camera, I have my phone. If I'm going to go somewhere with my kids and I might need a camera, I bring my phone. My other device is my iPad, and I bring that with me everywhere. But that's a tool that I use for reading or for studying or learning, whatever, taking notes. It just, yeah. Anyways, so I combat that by leaving my phone in my house. In fact, I was an Android user, and I switched to Apple so that I could get the Apple Watch so that I could leave my phone at my house. As weird as that sounds. I switched phones so that I could not carry my phone with me anymore. How about you?
But I guess that begs the question. There probably is still something that you do that wastes your time.
Oh, sure.
What do you think that is for you? That it's not your phone in this case.
Yeah.
What is it for you?
Does YouTube count as a social media?
Yes.
I don't think it does.
Yeah, the comment sections, those are crazy.
I guess it depends on how you interact with it.
Yeah,
it could be a tool or a resource, or it could be
the way I waste time sort of say is I am on YouTube a lot to watch videos from Jordan Peterson or.
But is that a waste of time?
Well,
that's
Are
what
you
I was
learning?
referring to.
I am learning.
Oh, okay.
Is it things I need to do? No.
Sure.
That's my go-to thing to, I mean, not waste time, but I'm learning. I'm using it as a tool, but
I guess it depends on how we identify wasting time or what you consider wasting time.
yeah. I mean, I don't.
Because I would consider watching an educational video like that a waste of time, but maybe it's not what you had planned to do or scheduled to do or should have been doing.
Fair.
Which is deterring from the plan.
Yeah, I don't play video games hardly ever at all. Very, very small snippets of time. I don't have any social media. So my time wastes are those things, but because I have because YouTube algorithm is so good that it shows you things that you like, and so all of my YouTube is stuff like that. It's educational videos, and I'm watching those things and interacting with those probably more often than I should. Maybe I should stop doing that and actually put some of those things into practice, and I would be better off for that.
That's funny though, because I go on YouTube and I see a video that's 30 minutes long. I think, oh my gosh, I can't spend 30 minutes watching that.
You don't have to. Just 2 times it. 2 times
My
everything.
brain doesn't work that fast.
You could scroll for 2 hours.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm not scrolling, but I'm exactly opposite. I play video games all the time. I play video games for hours. I can do that for 6 hours, but I can't watch 12 half-hour YouTube videos, which on paper is a lot better than playing 6 hours of video games. But it's easier for me to sit there and mindlessly do that one thing than to do small other things, which was what I said earlier too, is, sometimes I think, oh man, it's going to take me 30 minutes to do all these dishes. I just won't do them. Or, I don't start it because I'm afraid of how long it might take. And so I think personally something that stops me a lot is just doing something that I need to do or something that could be beneficial because I'm afraid that, or not a worry. I don't know what it is, like afraid or worried, or I don't know. I don't like the feeling of wasting quote unquote time, even though I would rather waste time than to
play a video game and to do that.
It doesn't feel the same though.
So for me, how you talk about how does that waste time for me? For me, so if I'm going to do the dishes or fold laundry or something, I'll spend 5 or 8, 10 minutes on my iPad or something to find the video that I'm going to watch while I'm folding clothes. And then I'll fold clothes and watch the video or listen to the video at the same time. But I'll spend, X number of time beforehand to set that up correctly. And then I'll do whatever it is the task is.
Yeah, but I can't wash dishes and play video games at the same time.
No, but I can wash dishes and listen to Andrew Huberman at the same time.
I mean, you can watch other people play video games.
You could play, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's not the same.
I mean, also, though, just for context, we listen to this podcast while doing our laundry.
And we have, yeah.
Do you listen at 2 times speed?
No.
No.
No, we don't.
I listen to everything at 2 times speed. And sometimes
Listen and watch.
I listen and watch everything in 2 times. Sometimes, I'll have YouTube on my TV and I'll be done with it, and somebody will come in and my kid will turn and what is going on? Where everybody's moving and talking really fast. And I stop at 2 times because that's as fast as YouTube lets you go. I probably could go faster, but
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I listen to podcasts while doing other things, or here and there and whatnot. I'm not saying I don't do that. Now I got to defend myself. I really shouldn't have to defend myself. It's just maybe I'm self-conscious about it. But I think, speaking of time wasters, that's what stops me, is I'm afraid of committing the time to something that I need to or should commit the time to.
see, I really like the idea of playing video games. And I have never been.
Do you have the opposite thing of that, where you'll play video games for half an hour and you're like, man, I just spent half an hour when I could have been doing
Yes.
X, Y, or Z thing for
Yes.
half an hour? Yeah.
Also, I'm really terrible at video games, and so I get tired of dying over and over again.
I don't know. You kick my butt at Street Fighter.
He's had years of experience in the.
But and how long have me and you sat down at one given time to play Street Fighter?
At one given time?
Yeah.
Maybe 2 hours tops.
Sure. Yes. Right. That's I'm like,
But see, there's also another layer to that, though, because you and I are sitting there socializing
while we're playing.
while we're,
Sure. So we should do this podcast
Sorry.
while we're playing Street Fighter.
I think we should fold our laundry while we record this podcast.
No, Subway Surfer. That's the best.
What did you say?
Subway Surfer. Do you know what that is?
Subway Surfer. Oh, you're the little guy and he jumps back and forth. Okay, yeah. My kid was playing that earlier at gymnastics. Yeah. I like the idea of playing video games, but I don't know.
Sure.
I can't will myself to sit down and die over and over again.
Well, just
in,
get better.
in the game to
Just
do
get
it.
better.
Just get better. Yeah.
Well, I think that can go back to like value systems though too. Like if you value the time with your video game versus you would value what you're doing, I guess. I don't
Sure.
You are playing a video game, so what you're doing isn't necessarily the right term, but
Well, I mean,
Games can be valuable.
yeah, that's my point is you value it.
sure, yeah. I mean, you can learn something from some of them, and kind of we talked about earlier. I enjoy it, and so I would spend time doing that because something I enjoy. Where you enjoy watching a video at 2 times speed.
I would rather not at 2 times speed, but I would rather watch somebody play a video game than play a video game. But I couldn't do that for very long.
Right.
Maybe over a length of time, 20 minutes at a time over a month. Okay, fine, but not all of that time bulked together.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's just I know people that sit down for 6 or 8 hours and read books for 6 or I couldn't do that for 6 or 8 hours.
My mind would melt.
We're looking at you. I'm looking at you specifically.
I couldn't do that.
Sure. But that's how I maybe justify it is the correct word that I don't want to use, but that's how I justify it. And someone else is doing something else. But then again, is that more beneficial than what I'm doing?
I suppose it depends on the value, the benefit that you get out of.
Sure.
Yeah, what does it do for you personally?
Well,
Time management.
which we did poorly in, considering we've gone twice as long as we thought we would.
That's okay. And to be fair, we probably could do a whole nother series or handful of episodes on time management. I think we just scratched the surface of what time management is, or some usefulness.
Can I still check it off my list to get that little dopamine rush?
You can, and not only can you check it off the list, you can add a couple more that we'll check off eventually. Those will be unfinished projects, I know.
Great. Perfect.
But they're on there, and eventually we'll check them off.
I'll put it in my calendar.
Yes,
Schedule
sir.
it.
Yes, sir. Okay. Well, time management, again, we scratched the surface. I'm sure there's a huge number of things that we could dive into to explore time management a little bit further. This is our first touch on it. Very likely we will come back to time management sometime in the future.
Ladies, thank you for joining
Thank you
us.
for having us.
Kira, I feel so much closer to you now, knowing that we think the same. Lily, I respect the way you put forward.
Wow.
Okay.
Nicely said.
Do you, yeah, it's interesting. We have two different sides, and you guys sat on that side and we sat on this side.
We are, yes.
It was
Kira and I are
just
on the
planned
same side of the room,
perfectly.
and you guys are on this end.
We had this talk prior.
Yeah, we did.
Because it's just like seeing us.
I see.
Seeing you two interact is just, it's just me and you.
Interesting.
Well, I guess we'll have to have you back to do this again.
This was fun.
Yeah, totally.
Until next time, be prestigious.